As the sun dipped below the horizon, its final rays painted the sky in shades of crimson and violet. The dense forest surrounding us whispered secrets of the unknown, and the cabin, a remote sanctuary hidden deep within the woods, seemed to beckon with an otherworldly allure. Our group of friends, Sarah, Alex, Mark, Lisa, and Eric, had chosen this cabin for a weekend retreat, ignorant of the eerie tale it held. Sarah, the intrepid explorer of our group, had stumbled upon the listing while seeking an escape from our daily lives. The cabin was a two-story structure, its weathered facade hinting at the stories etched into its very wood. Little did we know this weekend would etch its own chapter into the cabin's history. The first night passed relatively uneventfully. We arrived with excitement, unpacked, and settled into the cozy interior of the cabin. The fireplace crackled with warmth, dispelling the chill that clung to the air. We enjoyed a hearty meal, shared laughter, and played card games long into the night. The cabin embraced us with its charm, and the unsettling feeling that had loomed on our arrival seemed to ebb away. The following day, we decided to explore the forest, its dense trees looming like ancient sentinels. The air was cool. The leaves rustled in the breeze, and the beauty of nature surrounded us. It felt like an ideal escape from the urban chaos we left behind. As we ventured deeper into the forest, a feeling of unease settled upon us. The silence was profound, and the trees with their gnarled branches seemed to close in around us. Lisa, usually the calm and collected one, leaned over to Mark and whispered, "Do you feel that? It's like the forest is watching us." Mark, typically the skeptic of the group, couldn't shake the eerie atmosphere either. The woods seemed to have a life of their own, secrets that they guarded with an ironclad silence. That evening, as we gathered around the dining table, we heard it for the first time. A faint, ghostly whisper that seemed to emanate from the very walls of the cabin. It was as if the very wood and stone were infused with ancient tales. An uneasy shiver rippled through us, and we exchanged concerned glances. Eric, the one with an insatiable curiosity, couldn't resist the urge to investigate the source of the sound. The whisper seemed to guide him to a small locked room within the cabin. Layers of dust veiled the forgotten chamber, and as he swung open the door, he discovered an old journal amidst the relics of the past. The journal had aged, its pages yellowed and brittle. It belonged to a previous inhabitant of the cabin, and the entries told a chilling story. The author wrote of strange occurrences, of whispers in the night, shadows that moved of their own volition, and a final entry, a desperate plea for help. We gathered around as Eric read the journal aloud, and though we tried to dismiss it as the ramblings of a tormented mind, the cabin's unsettling atmosphere clung to us like a second skin. That night, as we retired to our beds, strange occurrences commenced once again. The whispers grew louder, and eerie shadows danced upon the walls. I was the first to see it. A shadowy figure, human-like but not quite, moved slowly and menacingly across the room. I gasped, awakening the others. Terrified, we huddled together in the living room, and our fear escalated with each chilling sound and movement. It was then we decided that this place was no longer safe, and we needed to leave at first light. Morning came, but the cabin had other plans. The front door, which had welcomed us so willingly, refused to open. Panic set in as anguished cries emanated from the cabin's very walls. We were trapped, our fate seemingly sealed. Desperation led us to the attic, where we discovered an old dusty Ouija board. It was a relic of the past, a forgotten game, and its presence heightened the eerie atmosphere. It felt like our last hope, our final attempt to communicate with whatever entity had ensnared us. Placing our hands on the planchette, it began to move on its own, spelling out words in response to our questions. The spirit identified itself as the restless soul of the man who had penned the journal. He had been consumed by a dark force within the cabin and needed our help to escape. We hesitated, but ultimately agreed to assist the spirit, hoping that by doing so we could free ourselves from the cabin's sinister grip. We followed the spirit's guidance, which led us to the cellar. There, he claimed, was the source of the sinister, an old locked chest containing the key to our release. As we found the chest and returned to the attic, the cabin's grasp intensified. Objects moved on their own, doors slammed shut, and the whispers evolved into a cacophony of haunting voices. We were undeterred, determined to complete the ritual that would release us from this nightmare. Finally, the oppressive force was expelled, and the cabin descended into an eerie silence. The front door swung open as if granting us passage to freedom. We fled without looking back, leaving behind the haunted cabin, its darkness expelled at last. As we drove away, we couldn't help but cast one final anxious look back at the cabin. It stood serene and innocent in the warm sunlight, its history hidden beneath the wooden facade, as if the evil had never taken root. We returned to the city, forever marked by our weekend in the woods. The memory of the cabin would stay with us, a constant reminder that some places, no matter how charming, should remain untouched by human curiosity. We left the cabin to the mysteries of the forest, hoping that it would remain dormant, at least for another generation. The forest of whispering shadows remained an enigmatic guardian of the cabin's history, and the whispering shadows whispered secrets to those who dared to listen. It was a tale we'd carry with us, a story of survival against the unknown, a memory of a weekend none of us would ever forget. The memories of our haunting weekend at the Whispering Shadows cabin remained etched in our minds long after we returned to the familiarity of city life. We tried to move forward, but the eerie events of that retreat were not so easily forgotten. It was as if the cabin's history had left an indelible mark on our souls, and as time passed, that mark only grew more pronounced. Sarah, the one who had originally found the cabin, bore the burden of that experience more than anyone else. She couldn't let go of the feeling that something remained unresolved, a story left incomplete. Her determination to unveil the cabin's dark history became an obsession, a mission to confront her own fears and put an end to the secrets that haunted that secluded place. As she delved deeper into the cabin's history, Sarah uncovered a trail of stories and tragedies that had unfolded over the years. The cabin had changed hands multiple times, each owner leaving behind tales of unexplainable occurrences and bizarre accidents. The most recent owner, a reclusive scholar of the occult, had mysteriously vanished, leaving behind an unfinished manuscript that hinted at a mysterious presence residing in the cabin. The book contained cryptic rituals meant to bind the being, but it was incomplete, leaving the entity unrestrained. Sarah became convinced that the key to ending the cabin's curse lay in completing the ritual and sealing the entity. Her determination was unwavering, and she believed that our group, bound by the memories of that fateful weekend, owed it to the cabin's lost souls and to future visitors to confront our fears and put an end to the malevolence. Despite the reservations of the group, we agreed to return to the Whispering Shadows cabin, driven by a mixture of curiosity, determination, and lingering dread. The closer we got to our destination, the more the unease we had felt before seemed to wrap itself around us once more. As we arrived at the cabin, an eerie silence greeted us, as if the forest itself held its breath. The cabin stood before us, its history shrouded in shadows, and it seemed to welcome us back with an unsettling sense of anticipation. We crossed its threshold not as unsuspecting visitors, but as individuals haunted by memories we couldn't forget. The moment we entered, the whispers began anew, soft and forlorn, as though the cabin itself yearned for release. We descended into the cellar, the incomplete manuscript in hand, determined to complete the ritual that had eluded its former owner. As we followed the ritual's steps, the cabin seemed to resist. Objects moved on their own, doors slammed shut, and the whispers grew more insistent. The atmosphere became tense and threatening, as though the cabin itself fought to protect the entity that dwelled within. But we pressed on, united by our shared goal, determined to complete the ritual and bring an end to the cabin's terror. The final steps of the incantation were heavy with foreboding, and the air crackled with an unseen force. As the last words left our lips, the cabin let out a chilling scream, its walls seemingly protesting the expulsion of the dark presence. In that moment, the cabin itself seemed to wither and age, as if the very life force that had sustained it was being drained away. We left the cabin for the final time, the forest surrounding it now echoing with a newfound stillness. The cabin had changed. Its once haunting presence had lost its malevolence, and it stood silent and unassuming in the light of day. As we departed, we couldn't help but cast one final apprehensive look at the cabin. It stood there, serene and tranquil, its history hidden beneath the wooden facade, as if the darkness had never existed. Returning to the city, the memories of our haunted retreat began to lose their sharp edges, but they remained a part of us, forever etched into our shared history. The Whispering Shadows cabin had lost its ominous reputation, and we left it to the secrets of the forest, with the hope that it would remain undisturbed for years to come. The Whispering Shadows forest continued to whisper its tales, but the cabin had become just another story, an echo of the past. It was a reminder that some places held secrets that were better left undisturbed,